As we near the end of 2021, we give thanks to all that God has done, and we are excited about the future here at Colo TV and Faith in Politics. You know, the reason why we started Faith in Politics was because today, America's trust in mainstream media is down to 36%, according to a Gallup poll. Not to mention, there's a lack of godly perspective in politics. So during the pandemic, we started by recording a humble Zoom call. From there, it grew to a talk show at K-Light Radio. After hearing from you, today we are bringing your local stories from across Hawaii. Thank you for your support, both financially and through your prayers in our efforts to produce Faith in Politics. As the year comes to a close, would you consider making a tax-deductible donation in support of this program? As you can imagine, there's a lot of effort that goes into producing Faith in Politics, but it's worth it because we are bringing a godly voice to the political arena. Thank you for partnering with us in producing Faith in Politics. And now, we hope you enjoy the program that we together produced.
Aloha and welcome to Faith in Politics, where we aim to discuss politics through the lens of faith, both here in Hawaii and around the world. I am Brian Lau, an intern here at Colo TV, and I'm excited to have this opportunity because of your support, so thank you. In today's program, Jack Hibbs catches up with Will Witt of PragerU. Will's mission is to spread the values of freedom and conservatism across America through online content. We'll also find out what it's like to be raised in a closed communist country. Dorita O'Neill, who knows firsthand, shares her story. But first, Malala Po caught up with Leo Rodas, a Marine veteran who served in Iraq and experienced heavy combat. They talk about his experience and where that led him today. Here's his story.
Leo Rodas, Marine veteran, and I totally butchered your name, so can you say it?
That's okay. Yeah, Braulio Rodas.
Braulio
Rodas. Right.
Rodas.
But because of that, I just go by Leo.
You know, one of my best friends, he actually moved from Maui to Texas. His name is Javier. So good. Francisco Javier.
That's good.
So, and his wife's name's Delia.
Oh.
So we always say Deli, you know. So we had to learn a little bit. Well, hey, it's great to have you part of the show. We met over at our Second Saturday location in Waimanalo,
yes.
And you're a part of the River of Life board.
Right, the board of directors at River of Life.
And so I wanted to talk to you because you're a veteran in the military, and I know just a little bit about your story. But on the get-go, this program is called Faith in Politics, right. And we really want to talk about the faith part in politics. And since you're military, and I know some of your story is that you were not a believer when you were in the military.
Exactly.
What do you your thoughts on the military forcing the vaccine on fellow comrades?
Right. I think if I had to take a position on it, I don't agree with it. I disagree that our military has to be forced or mandated to take the vaccine.
My name is Noah Sturgis Johnson. I'm a specialist in the United States Army. I am currently stationed at Fort Eustis, Virginia, as an 88-kilo watercraft operator. Due to the new order of the COVID-19 vaccine, I will potentially face separation from the United States Army, and I'm currently pending a religious exemption.
My name is Stratton West. I'm a petty officer 3rd class in the United States Navy. I've been serving honorably for exactly 2 years, and I will continue to do so. I will potentially be discharged for denying the COVID-19 vaccine.
My name is Lucas Jeffers, and I am a corporal in the United States Marine Corps. I have served honorably for 3 years and 4 months and will continue to do so. I have deployed to northern Syria and northern Iraq. In fulfilling my duties, I have been an FDC chief and an 81 section leader. I will potentially be discharged for refusing the COVID-19 vaccine.
My name is Holly Mulvihill. I am a staff sergeant in the United States Marine Corps. I have served honorably for 10 years and 2 months and will continue to do so. And there is a potential that I will be getting discharged for denying the COVID-19 vaccine.
I'm Courtney Tutela, staff sergeant in the United States Air Force. I've been serving honorably for the past 5 years and 3 months and will continue to do so. I will potentially be discharged if I do not get the COVID-19 vaccine.
My name is Chase Lauderdale. I'm a Lance Corporal in the Marine Corps. I have served honorably for 2 years and 6 months, and I will continue to do so. I am potentially being discharged for refusing the COVID-19 vaccine.
My name is Nancy Steele. I'm a Staff Sergeant with the United States Marine Corps. I have served honorably for 12 years and will continue to do so. I will potentially be discharged for denying the COVID vaccine.
I am James McCarthy. I'm a Lance Corporal in the United States Marine Corps. I have served honorably for 1 year and 9 months and will continue to do so. I will potentially be discharged for denying the COVID-19 vaccination.
And again, this is coming from a background in which I had to take different vaccines, especially in prep work for our deployments.
That's a bunch of different ones, but that was when. Which one was that?
This is in 2005, 2006. Okay. So I had to get the anthrax, like the battery of the anthrax vaccine, which is different doses. Likewise with smallpox, the different vaccines that I had never been exposed to, right? But aware that we're going into theater where possibly there's these different biological chemical agents that can be used against us. And so that at that point, you kind of reconcile that and you say, okay, fine, I'll take this vaccine. However, I think this is a different scenario with COVID-19, right? And so that's why I'm hesitant to say that it's okay. I don't think so. I think
the military has a whole different animal when you're signing up for the military, right? Your contract is to the military.
Exactly, right. So you're essentially, and we joke about it in the military, but you're pretty much signing your life away.
And that includes your social media life, right? I've seen some things where you really can't really go out of bounds. They can really do things to you, right?
You know, Malala, this is something else that I have a lot of tension with. I don't see why certain people like certain military members who have created these videos just opposing the vaccine have gotten so much backlash from their chain of command. It doesn't make any sense to me. Now, I'll be completely honest with you. There is a degree of what's called operational security that needs to be acknowledged. All that means is that if I'm deploying to, say, Iraq, and I know I'm going to be in Baghdad, I'm not going to post that on my social media saying, hey, I'm deploying in 5 days to this location. That's operational security. You don't want to expose anything, any intelligence like that, because that can be used against you. So there's things that we need to acknowledge, right? But in social media posts about my personal views regarding the vaccine, I just can't reconcile why the chain of command has so much power. And even I think there was a Marine captain who was put in the brig, right, for posting something on I think it was Twitter or whatever platform it was, just expressing himself.
It seems like the social media police and the political piece have made the vaccine and everything else a political issue. That's what it seems like to me. Would you agree that that's true within the military right now from what you're hearing? Obviously, you're not in the military today.
Right. But from what I'm hearing, I still have a lot of friends that are, active Marines. And so, yeah, it's being used as a very sort of divisive mechanism right now, which, again, to me is really problematic. Because we can't be doing that with our military. If anything, like we've done in the community here, we understand that there needs to be a spirit of oneness, of unity. So that needs to be so much more evident in our military.
Well, I remember when you were proud to serve in the military, and what I'm hearing even today with this vaccine is a lot of the Navy SEALs that are located here in Hawaii are not willing to take the vaccine. I think I find it very interesting that you have to take all these precautions to go to a place, all this training, hundreds of thousands, not millions of dollars for a person, or a Navy SEAL to go into a foreign land to do whatever the job that they're doing. Very dangerous.
Right.
And yet they could lose their job over a vaccine.
Exactly. I mean, even just that statement alone, you can start to unpack the problems that are existing, again, within our chain of command. That's not taking care of the troops that are actually doing the work on the ground. This is where the problem exists.
Kind of moving to same but different subject, Afghanistan. What did you think about the pullout of Afghanistan?
I cringed. I was completely heartbroken that just at the international scale, just on to everyone, I think that we looked buffoonish. We looked awful. And it should never have been that way. And I understand that the previous administration had started to bring troops back or whatever it was. It's fine, but with this new administration, it takes time, right? And so they had already made some extensions. They had already done whatever they had to. It didn't have to happen that way, right? And I understand a lot of the higher brass, the generals are saying, we didn't think that the ANA, the Afghan National Army, would fall apart like that. It's just passing the blame. That's just, we didn't think so. We didn't know. Of course we knew. 13
soldiers.
From 2-1, from 2nd Battalion, 1st Marines, out of Camp Porno. These are the guys that I served with when I was leaving, when I EAS out of the Marines. This is my last duty station, 2nd Battalion, 1st Marines. It's heartbreaking to know that it's your junior Marines that are out there risking their lives, and it has to happen like that. A suicide bomber, right? An S-Vest coming into really close to where these Marines are, to where their patrol base was. It just doesn't have to happen that way. And it still is. I have to look at the calendar sometimes and say, what is it? What year is this? That we're still making these mistakes. We didn't learn from the invasion from 2001, 2003. We still didn't learn. I just don't understand. So again, it's heartbreaking. You can see that it's really a soft point for me also.
Yeah, and your story, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your story, because you seem, from what I understand, from what I've seen and heard, you're really on the ground levels, I guess what I'm trying to communicate.
Right. And so I came in 2005. I came in 2005 when I hit the fleet. It's called the Fleet Marine Corps. I went to 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines, and that's in 29 Palms. That's in California. It's in the desert, and it's probably the best place to train for the Middle East, and not good for anything else. That's about it. And so my job was on the ground, was an 0311 infantryman. And that's just a job designation, 0311. 03 is infantry, and then 11 is just, again, a designation of what you're going to be doing. And so for us, with 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines Lima Company, that meant we were on the ground, oftentimes face painted, kicking down doors, doing raids, acquiring intelligence, things like that. Taking, sometimes, if we had intel indicating that there was a high value target, we'd cordon the area off, and we'd take these targets down. So this is what we did. But with that, I want to include that being on the ground makes you so vulnerable to everything else going on. So we weren't in Humvees, although we had them, a different platoon operated in the Humvees. Although there were small tanks, LAVs, that's a whole nother designation of infantry that uses those vehicles. So for us, strictly on the ground. Running, walking, doing all that. Yeah. Wow.
Now you tell a story about you go into a building, and tell us about that story.
Yeah. So this is my team leader at the time. I was a junior Marine. This is my team leader was kind of was pinned down. But let me lead up to that story. So intelligence indicated that there was an IED making factory, IED, improvised explosive device making factory. So what you typically find are, maybe some warheads, like RPG-7 warheads, maybe some blasting caps. And that's what we found. We found some timers. We found some wires, things like that, some blasting caps. But it just didn't add up, because intel indicated that there was a full-on factory of things going on. It didn't seem that way. It was really empty. And so when we were clearing it and started getting shot at, we realized we'd been set up.
Wow. So you were being shot at.
Right. So we start clearing the house, and we're there maybe a few minutes. We're clearing it, and then we start to take just like medium machine gun fire, right? And so quickly you start to identify, ask yourself questions. Where is it coming from? How fast are the bursts? What type of weapon are they using? RPK, PKC, different types of weapon systems that they might have. And so that way you can kind of determine what your response is going to be. And so I hear my name, Rodas, being called out. It's like, oh, that's Coots. His name is Joseph Kutsera. It's like, oh, that's my team leader. I know that. I know him calling me. And so I run over, and it just sounds like he's in trouble. It sounds like he's in distress. And sure enough, he had gone into a room where there was kind of like an open window looking into the room. So if I can try to paint this picture, there's a doorway, room on the wall on the right, window on the far left, and he's all the way into that back corner. So he'd gone in to clear it, and when he was in there is when apparently the enemy saw him in there and started lighting him up. And so when he's calling out to me, I run up to the room he's in, and I'm at the doorway, and I mean I can see the 7.62 rounds, the machine gun rounds hitting his chest, and he's just taking rounds to the chest. And again, how do you process that, right? And so I cut that left corner. I identify where the rounds are coming from. I see that window. I see where the enemy's shooting from, and I just start to take shots. Try to take shots on that like machine gun nest. Sure enough, there's a lull in the fire. I jump across, I grab him, and we fall together outside of that doorway. And we're looking for, like, I'm ripping his flak off. I got the corpsman's running in. And there's not a single round, not a scratch on him, nothing. And but when I watched it happen, I can visibly see his shoulders rocking back and forth. Like I see the rounds impacting his chest. And so, and I know this is perhaps another conversation, but just like where faith comes in, like how do you reconcile that? Like I know what I saw, but then here I have he's alive. Instead, he should be bleeding out in my arms, but instead we're both shocked that he's alive. So again, this is that's that story.
That's amazing. And I'm sure that happens all the time.
All the time.
We just don't hear it like that all the time. And we've invested a lot of time and energy there, and a lot of soldiers have passed because of that time. So I'm sure it's just gut-wrenching to see how we pulled out, not that we pulled out, but how we did, and losing right. 13 soldiers, that was difficult. And then to hear your story and how many more could be, if not already, lost for the fight.
You're watching Faith in Politics. Stick around as we continue our conversation with Leo Rodas.
We have a mission here at Calo TV. We continue to be the only local Christ-centered media outlet in Hawaii. God has planted this station to nourish believers and to harvest souls for eternity. It's a calling we hold dear, and today we need your help. Partner with us as we continue to create original local programs.
The church needs to just stick to the scriptures.
Right. She was like this as a little girl.
Running around?
Yeah, running around, yeah.
Showcase solid biblical teaching.
We reach more people in one day with the broadcast of the gospel.
It's music to God's ears.
Improve our infrastructure, and influence social media. Are you willing to labor with us for Hawaii, for your ohana, for the next generation? Go to calotv.com and partner with us today.
Welcome back to Faith in Politics. Let's continue our interview with Leo Rodas.
When did you come to know Jesus?
I came to know Jesus at a really tough time in my life. It was 2014. Relationships were crumbling. Family was falling apart. My health was deteriorating from injuries related to being in the Marines and ignoring certain things my body was telling me. And so I was at the VA Tripler. I was in a wheelchair. I had just gotten some surgeries done on my abdomen. And I was just in a really bad place. And just mentally thinking of becoming another statistic, becoming another 22 a day. And so someone was walking past it going into Tripler. He had a book with him. He just kind of put it in my lap. I was already kind of in tears. He said, "Read the red." So I was like, read the red. What is that supposed to mean? And so I opened it. I opened up this book. I opened up the Bible, and I started looking for where it was red. I got to about the 5th chapter in John, and I was just completely undone. I just asked the Lord into my life. I said, okay. I didn't know our chaplains when I was operating. I know my mom had been praying for me when I was deployed. I know certain things from my childhood, but I had never given my life to Jesus. I had never made him my Lord and Savior, right? And so it was then that, again, I asked him into my life, and I surrendered. I surrendered my life over to God, and I started to see a change. I started to notice that my body started getting better thereafter, months after.
Physically.
Physically, my body started to get more resilient. My thoughts, even, certain things, that dreams that you might have, certain things that were going on mentally, the violence, all that started to subside. And not that it's completely gone today, which is why I say I still need Jesus. But that's kind of like when I met Jesus, and I just started to really see his power in my life.
And you have a real heart for people like you that are hurting and so on. And you're now going to school for what?
Right. So I'm at HBU, Hawaii Pacific University. I'm a MSW candidate, which is a master's in social work candidate. And so my emphasis there is to work with active duty military and veteran families. So again, just because I've been there, because I've been how I call it the ringer. I've been through the ringer. I've been through it. And I know what broken families look like. And I know what it even looks like before they get to that point. And so I want to be there when we want to bring people together in this sort of like reconciliation. I want to be part of this sort of concept of agents of reconciliation, of bringing families back together, right? So that's the population that I'm sort of, I have nearest to my heart, especially also because of the different things that plague these populations, like addictions, right? Drugs and alcohol and different things like that. Like I've seen that, I've lived that, I know what it's like. Right? I've been down these roads before myself. And so I understand the language, I understand that culture. That's where I want to be.
What brought you to River of Life?
That's funny. That's a good question. Let's see. It was actually a men's group. It was a Bible study with a good friend of mine. And I was just letting him know about so like what he called the Jesus moment. Right. So, hey, one time over this past week when you saw Jesus present in your life, and it was right off of Kalakaua Avenue, there was a homeless man who was outside of our building. We have a low income elderly, it's a kupuna building. And homeless guy, he's got these sort of like scratches and open wounds on his legs. And so I went out with my med pack, and I helped him. I saw him. I didn't shoo him away. I didn't call the police on him like the rules say we should. I just wanted to see him as a person. And so I took care of him. I cleaned him up. I cleaned up his wounds, much like back in combat. I cleaned him up, patched him up, and without me having to tell him, hey, you got to go, he left on his own. Gave him some water. And so I was sharing this story with the men's group. And one of the guys in the group is also a board member with the River of Life. He's like, oh, you got to come down. You got to come down and interview with us and tell us more about yourself. And so I did. I went down. I started to volunteer. I started just to give my time, right, and to walk with other people, other homeless people, houseless people down there. And they loved me. I met with Rand. I met with the board. They loved me. They asked me to say a few things. I said some things, and then they about a week later, they said, okay, you're in. So that's how I became involved with the mission.
And then we met over at our second Saturday.
Right.
Every second Saturday of the month, we go and we serve a community, and our community that we've kind of adopted is Auntie Blanche's place over in Waimanalo. What are your thoughts? Tell some of the viewers what you saw there, that maybe they can be encouraged to come out and join us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I saw just like this the importance, right, of community, the importance of coming together for the purposes of life itself. There's farms there, beautiful plots of farms. There's papaya trees. I love anything that grows, fruits that grow. I'm huge into lilikoi and things like that. And so what you'll see there are these beautiful farms. You'll see just like a homeless encampment, right, with tents, with structures. You'll see smiling faces. You'll see transformed lives. It's really something that it's kind of hard to describe, because you just have to go see it and walk it and feel God's presence there. It's kind of emanating from the soil.
Yeah, it's amazing how much it has grown during the pandemic there, from just tents on the ground to now structured homes and a piece of property that was really rugged, and now it's pretty flat, and we're growing all kinds of fun stuff. So for those viewers that want to come out and plow the land with us, they need to come out there. So as we're closing, we're a huge supporter of the military here. We want to honor them as much as we can possibly do, and having men's groups and meeting with a lot of people here in Hawaii, because it is the only land in the Pacific, right? That's the U.S. So what would you say, as we're closing here, what would you say to the military out there, personnel that's really struggling right now? What would you encourage them?
That's good. Let's see. I would encourage them to just to read more, to just lean into Scripture. I know that my chaplain at the time really wasn't there for us, for our unit. And so we lacked a lot of those sort of voices that would encourage us to kind of step outside of what our norm was. I would encourage them to just, maybe take a break from drinking and partying for one weekend, and just kind of lean into the Word a little bit, to come together, to try to set up groups online if they have to, where they can talk about these things. Right, where they can really develop more camaraderie, because as COVID-19 has kind of separated us, the military needs to build that so much more. And so I would just encourage them to try to grow together more in unity, try to develop that a lot more.
Finally, I've had a couple of viewers that are in beds at Tripler right now. And they thank Kalo for being on, so they have a place to find hope and encouragement. Will you just say a word for them in that camera over there?
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Hey, I was recently reading Lamentations chapter 3. So if you do have your Bible with you, open that and just take a look at what that prophet is saying there, and let that sink in. Let that just reflect on that. And know that God is with you. Even though sometimes it may not seem that way, He's never going to leave us. He's never going to forsake us. He's always going to be there. So let that kind of grow in our hearts. And let's be that for everyone else, for those around us.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you for being here. We're praying for you. If you're one of those guys in bed, and we're hoping that you reach out to us, give us a call so we can encourage you more. Leo, thanks for coming. Can we do this again? Because time went really fast.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service.
Insightful conversation with Leo Rodas. You're watching Faith and Politics. We'll be right back.
Nobody delivers good news to Hawaii like Kalo TV delivers the good news, because we're the only local Christian TV station that's right here on island with one singular mission: to take the message of Christ even further. What is our mission? You, the body of Christ, encouraged, growing, empowered.
Come and join us.
Can't wait to meet you. Help us spread the good news. The only thing missing is you.
Come on out!
Kalo TV, broadcasting aloha 24/7.
Welcome back to Faith and Politics. What if your reality is to live in a closed society where you have no rights, your food is rationed, and the only thing you're allowed to believe in is your government? Is America heading into that direction? Dorita O'Neill, who grew up in this kind of culture, shares her story.
I have been here in the United States for about 20-something years, and I came from Albania. a really tiny little country north of Greece and surrounded on the other side by what is now known as the former Yugoslavia. So Albania was a fully communist country, and it was actually back in 1945, right after the war, Albania decided that they were going to align with the communist views of the former USSR, so the Soviet nations. We were not part of the Soviet countries, but a lot of people did think that we were part of them just because of our ideology. And so when they started to align with the West, then we decided that we were going to break relations with them, and we were going to align ourselves with communist China. So going from bad to worse, then we decided that we were going to have our own brand of communism. And that was even more extreme, so to speak. We completely isolated ourselves. We were one of the few countries in Europe that nobody could come freely into or could get out of the country. The TV, radio was very much controlled. There was a lot of propaganda being taught in schools and everywhere you went. And the whole mindset was that if we don't have it, we can go without it because that makes us more resilient. And that was the party's way of keeping the population from revolting, I guess. You know, the majority of the population was very poor. I grew up to lines, food lines and gasoline lines, and we had ration foods, like we were a family of 4, so we could only have, let's say we could only have 10 eggs per month for a family of 4, or we could only have like 1 pound of butter per week for a family of 4. So everything was rationed. Everybody kind of looked the same because we had the same type of fabric, and everybody kind of only had like 1 pair of shoes. When my mom would tell me to go to the store to buy some bread, I didn't have to ask her what type of bread because there was only 1 type of bread that would be available. And even with that, I would have to wait in line for, 45 minutes or so because to just get the 1 loaf of bread. We did not have water all the time. Neither did we have electricity. And so winters in Albania get kind of cold, maybe in the 30s. So you would be freezing in the wintertime. Entertainment-wise, we only had 1 TV station, 1 radio station, and they were all controlled by the party. And so we always thought that our situation was so much better than the rest of the world because the party would always just show that the West is full of riots and homelessness, and look at how good it is here in our country. There's no homeless people here, and everybody has a job, and we can provide for ourselves. And they always showed only the bad side of the West. They never showed all the modern things and cars. And oh yeah, people did not have cars. We just walked everywhere, or we took the bus to places. So the whole Marxist ideology of religion is opium for the masses, that was the idea that was thought of there. And they did not align themselves with any type of religion. They actually persecuted. They just kind of killed all the mullahs and the clerics and any of the priests, and they destroyed all churches or mosques. So we grew up in a full-on atheistic society. We were taught that you die and that's it. There's no heaven or hell. You just cease to exist. And the whole idea of ceasing to exist was extremely terrifying to me as a young person. And so I just thought that at 16-year-olds, by the time that I get older and I'm closer to dying, then science will probably have come up with some medicine of eternity. And so I sort of placed all of my faith and all my trust in science. And I thought they'll come up with a medicine of eternity. Well, my family and I were at the beach just hanging out, and this was in 1992, and there were some foreigners that were at the beach, and my mom said, well, you've been learning English all these years, let's go and you can go and practice your English with them. And she just kind of dragged me to talk to these 2 ladies, and when I started talking to them and they said, we're here to tell people about Jesus. And I was like, who's Jesus? I'd never heard of Jesus or didn't know who he was or what he had done. But as they were explaining some more about, if you have Jesus in your heart, then he will give you eternal life. I said, eternal life? That's the key. That's what I've been looking for. And it was just like the Lord had created that emptiness in my heart. And that was the thing that really appealed to me. And they were talking about, you being a sinner and you need Jesus. And I was like, what do I have to do? I didn't care about the sinner part. I was like, oh, yeah, how bad can that be? But I'm like, but tell me about this eternity thing. And how can I know for sure that this is all I have to do? And that was the key for me. Hearing the eternity bit was like, that's what I want. That's what I've been searching for. It's very upsetting to me to see the United States heading in this direction that it's heading, because I see all of these restrictions and mandates and losses of liberty, of personal liberties that are very terrifying to me as somebody that has lived under communism and socialism and going to school for a regular day of school, and then the Department of Health coming, and without my parents' notification, they would come and immunize all the children in the school while we were just supposed to go there to get taught math and English and whatever. And we were getting immunizations without my parents knowing. And then I'd go home and I'd say, I had a shot today, or I had my teeth drilled today, without my mom knowing or my dad knowing. And seeing those mandates, the other day I was reading on the local papers that these buses were going to go and be available in the high schools here on the island, so for whoever that needed to get immunizations. And to me, that was very scary. I left my country and my family members and everybody so that I could be somewhere where I could be free to think for myself and to believe in the things that I wanted to believe into, and if I wanted to follow the Lord in that way and to have that medical freedom to say yes or no to certain treatments or things like that. And I never thought that in 20 short years I would be in a position where I'm faced with mandates and restrictions and putting masks on. And that's how it starts. And the propaganda that keeps getting poured all over this island. When I hear the news, or when I read the news, or when I watch the TV, it is very frightening to me. It feels like the noose is tightening. And a lot of people might just think, oh, it's just a shot, what's the big deal? But that's how it starts. And once the government has access to your medical and tells you what you can and cannot, what type of treatment can and cannot have, and what shot should you and should you not have, then they've taken over more than they should have. And to me, that's the scary part, that we're allowing them and we're handing over all of our rights, and we're saying, here you go, you can make all the decisions for me. And what is it going to stop? Where is it going to stop? And I'm seeing it with the flight restrictions as well. That's actually really, it's taken me back to a time where you had to stay put. You had to get permission in order to go from one place to another. And you couldn't just up and leave and move from one city to another. You had to have permission. Like I said, I did live under communism, and the Lord found me there and saved me there. And I lived under socialism there, and then the Lord brought me here in the US, and I've lived under freedom. And my first reaction when I was starting to seeing all of the changes that were happening here in the United States was to fear and to be anxious about what my future and what my children's future might look like. And yet the Lord keeps reminding me that He is in control and that He has not forgotten me, and He saved me, and He took care of me while I was under communism and socialism, and He will do the same here. So what has been my challenge to myself is to just keep focusing on the Lord. In Psalm 121, the Lord, it says, I lift my eyes up to the heavens. That's where my help comes from. The Lord is reminding me over and over again that I need to focus my eyes on Him and to just seek Him, and then He will take care of everything. I mean, maybe now is the time that the church needs to really counting the cost with our relationship with the Lord. Did we really mean it that we would follow the Lord with no matter what happened? And so that's where I've kind of seen the Lord just take me on that. And of course, keep on telling people about Jesus, because this is a time of desperation and hopelessness. And so this is the perfect time to be telling people that, hey, I have hope, and my hope is in Jesus, that my hope doesn't come in government, my hope doesn't come from the vaccine or mandates or anything, but my hope comes in Jesus and from Him alone.
Special thanks to Dorita for sharing her perspective. When we return, Will Witt and Jack Hibbs talk about cultural values. You're watching Faith and Politics.
We have a mission here at Calo TV. We continue to be the only local Christ-centered media outlet in Hawaii. God has planted this station to nourish believers and to harvest souls for eternity. It's a calling we hold dear, and today we need your help. Partner with us as we continue to create original local programs.
The church needs to just stick to the scriptures.
She was like this as a little girl.
Running around?
Yeah, running around, yeah.
Showcase solid biblical teaching.
We reach more people in one day with the broadcast of the gospel.
It's music to God's ears.
Improve our infrastructure and influence social media. Are you willing to labor with us for Hawaii, for your ohana, for the next generation? Go to calotv.com and partner with us today.
Welcome back to Faith and Politics. Jack Hibbs caught up with Will Witt of PragerU as they discuss our culture today. Here's a portion of their conversation.
Will just got in today from New Orleans. He has been on a book tour, and he has authored a book. You guys, you know what? Listen, this is just the caliber of this 25-year-old and what God has done in his life so quickly. This guy wrote his first book, and he had his book tour, and it has already become number 6 on the New York Times best-selling list. You guys give a warm welcome to Will Witt. Woo!
Thank you. Thank you, man. Thank you, man.
Oh, I love it.
Thank you.
Yep.
I just say one thing.
Yep.
So, it's not number 6 on the New York Times bestseller list because the New York Times hates conservatives. So they decided not to put us on the list. But we got number 6 best-selling book in America, which was incredible. So it was very
There
cool.
you go.
Very
Okay,
cool.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Very, very good.
Yeah.
Well, can you say something even more specifically to the young people that are either here or watching? Give them some adrenaline as to why they should cut ties with distractions and actually make an investment like you did.
My favorite book is The Picture of Dorian Gray. I'm not sure if many of you guys have read that. It's a classic from the 1800s by Oscar Wilde. And when I was in college, this was my freshman year of college, I was, at this time, an atheist. I was very sad with a lot of things going on in my life. I was debaucherous. I mean, I did a lot of things that Jesus would not be too proud of, we can put it that way. And during this time, I read this book, The Picture of Dorian Gray, and it was a life-changing book, because essentially within the book, it talks about how you can do all of these things, these material things in your life, and it can feel really good in the moment, and people might look at you a certain way, outside people, but your soul starves, and your soul ends up dying, and that's what happens to Dorian in the book, and that is exactly how I felt. And then when I finally found out what truth is, first I became a conservative, and then as you heard from Jack earlier, I became a Christian. I felt incredibly compelled to speak truth. It's like when you feel like you've been lied to for your entire life, and then someone tells you what is actually true, you don't have a choice but to speak it. The reason why I got baptized is because I kind of said, the pandemic happened, and I was like, all right, I'm going to stop messing around. I'm gonna actually read the Bible. I'm gonna sit down and I'm going to read it. And I read the 4 Gospels, and I figured out that if Jesus really died for our sins and everything that is in here is true, then you don't have a choice but to give your life for him, right?
Love it.
Thank you. And so when you start to realize these types of things and know that there is truth out there and that you don't have to believe the lies and that you can be a strong, adamant voice for something, you feel compelled to do so. And so that's how I felt. And I'll tell one more story quickly.
Oh, please.
When I was in college, and I was still kind of figuring out my politics and a lot of different things, and I actually didn't include this in the book, so this is special for everyone here. But there was a girl in one of my classes, this was in my political science course, which was all full of leftist nonsense, but I was still figuring things out, and she had a Trump pin on her backpack, right? This was in 2016. And she came up to me, random girl I hadn't really met before, and she said, "Hey, who are you voting for?" I said, "I don't know, why are you talking to me?" You know? And she said, "Oh, I'm voting for Trump." And I said, "Oh, that's really cool, why are you doing that?" And we got into this whole conversation about why she's voting for Trump and about what I think, and I didn't know a lot. But then after she talked to me that day, I went and did a ton of more research on my own and found out that, wow, the world is way different than I thought it was.
Wow.
Things are way worse than I thought they were, right? And so it was like, that girl then got me in touch with Turning Point USA and PragerU and the Leadership Institute, all of these different organizations that then led me to where I am now. If it wasn't for one girl being adamant about her opinions and being brave to come and talk to me about these things, there is no way I would be up here on this stage talking to you right now. I wouldn't have had this book. I wouldn't have done any of the things I do.
That is so great.
Thank you.
Man, that's an encouragement.
I mean, it's like that old saying that not everyone can help everyone, but everyone can help someone. You have no idea who you can influence. You have no idea. The person who you might talk to about your faith or your politics or the culture just at large could be someone who you completely changed that person's life. I know my life was changed. I'm in many ways a totally different person than the person I was before, reborn in a sense. That's because someone decided to have that conversation with me and be brave. You can be that person.
What do they need to be awakened to?
I think nihilism right now is incredibly present in our generation. I think in my generation specifically. I think that social media has done a lot of harm with that. I think that it's made people incredibly vain, and when they're obviously constantly comparing themselves to other people, they don't feel like they are good enough, and so they think that things are meaningless, which is really sad. Christianity has also declined in the West, and so they no longer have that. I mean, church service attendance is way down. Christianity is going up in other countries, but it's declining here in America and throughout Europe, and so that as well. It's a tough situation because it's like, we were talking a little bit before about personal responsibility.
Yep.
Jordan Peterson's entire mantra can basically be solidified down to 2 words, personal responsibility. And it's like, how can you distill personal responsibility into someone who doesn't want it themselves? Right? It's an incredibly hard thing to do, especially as parents. I understand, you want your kids to take responsibility for what they're doing, not feel entitled. And I know for a fact that when I was going through college and high school and my mom tried to make me have more personal responsibility, there was a lot of times I didn't really listen to her, when I should have. But these are things that have to come from the individual. Okay, they're things that can't necessarily come from always an outside source of someone coming in and telling them. There's a huge cultural problem as well with role models in this country.
Yes.
The young people don't have any role models, whether that's their parents because divorce rates are up, whether that's because they're looking for vapid Hollywood celebrities and Cardi B and these types of people to be their role models. There is no one teaching them good values in this country anymore the way that they used to be taught. And I think that's why we have a big gap. Because we used to have shared values in this country. That even if you were a Democrat and I was a Republican,
that's right,
we could still get along and say at the end of the day, America's a great place. I love the founding of this country. I don't want to be anywhere else, right? That's what we used to have. But there are no more shared values because the young people in this country are not being brought up with those same values anymore. Because the left wants to destroy all of those values. The godless wants to destroy all of these values. And so we are fighting not a war of politics that I think a lot of people think we're doing right now. We are fighting a war of values. And that is the main purpose of what we need to do.
Yeah, really well said.
Thank you.
Well said. A spectator to your life would say, oh, come on, Will, you're just that white privileged guy out there. You got it on cruise. Everything just falls right in line for you. Would you feel comfortable sharing a little bit about how that's not the case?
Definitely, yeah. I can share as much as I can here. I would say, as you guys have seen my videos, okay, I'm a pretty calm guy. All right? I don't get too mad at the people who are coming up and yelling at me or throwing discriminate hate at me, saying any of these things. I remain very calm. The only time that I've ever really gotten upset in any of my videos or arguments is when people come and talk to me about white privilege. I think that it is one of the most despicable things to say to people, because you are taking no look at how this person's life might actually have been or how it turned out, and you are trying to pigeonhole them just based on the color of their skin. I mean, it truly is a disgusting thing to say to people.
That's right on.
And I grew up with not the most normal life. I think that, again, just like Jack said, people would look and say, oh, this easy white conservative, he's been living like this his whole life. I grew up as a liberal atheist. I grew up without my dad. My dad was in prison when I was growing up since the age of 5. My mom would work as a nurse in the psych unit. She had a lot of crazy stories doing that. 16-hour shifts on the weekends for my sister and I. I hate to say this because I never want to make myself look like a victim whatsoever. I would hate that. I don't even ever like to even talk about my story because I want people to know me for my ideas, not about my past or anything like that. That's why I don't care about the white privilege stuff or anything. But it's easy to look at people and think that they are a certain way or think that they act a certain way and expect them to always be that way. And people had a lot of low expectations for me and for my life. No one thought that I would ever be in this situation, now speaking at churches and doing this. I mean, it's quite the wild difference than from what I grew up with. But we have to come at people with an open mind. This is why my book works on compassion. There is a time and place for owning the libs, okay? We can have Ben Shapiro. Okay, folks, we're going to own the libs today, all right?
That's good.
It's good. It's not so bad, all right?
Very good.
There is a time and a place for that. Understood. But when we are talking to people on an individual basis, the way that we change minds is through humility, by knowing that they might have something that they can teach us too, and through compassion. And that's through asking questions to these people. And when you do that, you will find that you have a much better success rate at actually talking to people than just trying to berate them with facts as quickly as possible. Have an open mind. I mean, since the beginning of the pandemic, I've read a lot of different books, and I've talked to a lot of different people, and my political views have shaped wildly. I mean, there are even some things in this book that I now have read, because I wrote this about a year and a half ago, or a year ago is when I finished, and I'm like, man, I wish I would have put all these other things in there, that I now believe. But, that's life.
That's powerful. Talk about having a purpose, and it's purposeful enough to take a risk. I guess you mentioned values. Tell them regarding risk to value, that ratio of living life.
You guys remember the Goya Beans guy,
Yes.
the CEO of Goya Beans? That guy came out and he said he supported President Trump, right?
Yeah.
And the day after, or not even the day after, the second after he did that, every single left-wing mainstream media company came out and said that Goya beans are racist, okay? These Mexican beans are now racist, apparently. And listen, I had maybe seen Goya beans on the shelf before, but I'd never bought Goya beans, anything like that. And so at first, it seemed really scary for this guy, right? He's like, oh my God, all these people are canceling me, and they're taking the things I said out of context, and they're hating on me. But then what happened the next day after things calmed down a little bit?
I bought Goya beans.
You bought Goya beans, right?
Really?
Every single conservative in America went out and bought Goya beans.
We all...
So people who are worried about what the left is going to do to them now should be far more worried about what's going to happen in the future if they do nothing now. Because things are getting worse in America. I think we can all agree with that. How many of you guys read Brave New World? Brave New World I read at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was a life-changing book for me. It really was. Because I've read 1984 as well, and I see there's some similarities there with 1984. But if you haven't read Brave New World, I highly recommend it, because I feel like we are getting to a place in the world that we are much closer to that type of dystopia than we are to a 1984 one.
That's true.
Because in Brave New World, what do these people have above everything else? They have comfortability. They have a comfortable life where they are safe. They have soma, which is this drug they take, which makes them feel a little bit high and easy. They have no families. They have sex with everyone. That's what it's like in the brave new world. And to me, it seems very congruent with what we are seeing in America today. Because people have put aside risk-taking, they've put aside a passionate life, or being someone brilliant and articulate and wonderful, and have said, I'm going to choose a mediocre, safe life instead of doing something incredible. And that's where we are in America today. And I see this not just with people who are on the left, I see this with conservatives as well, who say, I don't want to speak out because it's just much easier to not speak out, right? Of course it is. You keep your job, you don't have people hate you for it. But you end up trying to impress all of these people, you end up impressing no one, and you definitely don't impress God. When you lie to yourself and you lie to everyone else that's out there, and you don't live a brave life, then America will really be lost. America was made by brave men who decided that they had a difference of opinion than what was going on. I mean, think about it. Have you guys ever heard the term 3%ers? Thank you. 3% is essentially... I got 3% of the people clapping for that one. 3%er essentially was 3% of the colonists in the revolution actually fought in the revolution. Okay, that is a very small group of people. Think about the founding fathers, all right? This is a very small group of guys who said, I have this radical idea to go away from the British Empire and start our own country and do something incredibly radical and different. It is because of unpopular ideas that America was possible.
That's right.
If it wasn't for people having unpopular ideas and living risky lives, the West in America would never have existed.
Great stuff. You can catch the entire conversation on Colo TV. Let's take a look at the latest headlines around the world.
We begin in Virginia, where alleged sexual assaults by a transgender student in 2 Loudoun County schools have parents up in arms. Amid accusations of a cover-up, they're calling for the school superintendent and several school board members to step down. Parents are also fed up with the teaching of critical race theory and with explicit sexual content in school library books. Tara Mergener has the story.
After months of turmoil over COVID restrictions, critical race theory, and transgender policies, there are now reports of 2 sexual assaults by a gender-fluid boy. The county's new bathroom policy and a recent change to state law are back in the spotlight.
Superintendent Scott Ziegler apologizing after 2 girls reported the sexual assaults on school grounds.
I am sorry that we failed to provide the safe, welcoming, and affirming environment that we aspire to provide.
According to the Commonwealth's attorney, the same teenager is accused in both incidents that happened months apart at different Loudoun County high schools. In one, the attack took place in a girls' restroom. The alleged attacker allowed access by the school's transgender policy. Scott Smith, father of that victim, is suing the school system after being arrested while trying to confront the board at a recent meeting.
The whole thing was handled poorly.
The superintendent and the school board members insist they were not aware of the specific details of this incident until it was reported in media outlets.
Mr. Ziegler, how could have you lied to all of these parents about what had happened to my daughter?
This all brings renewed criticism on 2 controversial measures. The county's recently adopted rule allowing transgender students to use restrooms that match their gender identity, a policy supported by Virginia's Board of Education, and HB 257, a bill passed in the legislature by the Democrat majority that ended mandatory school reporting of certain crimes, including sexual battery.
So that parents aren't aware, so that law enforcement isn't aware. And I think that had a direct impact on how they handled both of these rapes.
Amid the latest fallout, one school board member abruptly resigned, and there are new calls for the superintendent to step down.
His false statement on June 22nd and his failure to keep an alleged assailant out of school are far worse and merit immediate termination.
Tara Mergener, CBN News.
Thank you so much for watching Faith in Politics. As always, this nonprofit program exists because of your support. We cannot do this without you, so please consider donating. We want to hear from you. What are your concerns? Please be sure to send us an email. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. I am Brian Lau for Faith in Politics. Aloha.